the intricate miniature of the Sunset Ridge, resort lay in pieces on the polished concrete floor, a jagged testament to my crumbling world. I stared at the scattered balsa wood and shattered plastic, the painstaking details of weeks of work now mere debris. My name is Clara, and this wasn't just a model. It was my dream, the final project for my architecture degree, a meticulous tribute to the visionary principles I shared with my late mentor, Elias. Elias, whose sudden, unexpected passing 6 weeks ago had plunged my life into a bewildering maelstrom. "Clara, what in the world have you done?" Liam's voice sliced through the stunned silence of the studio, laced with a mix of shock and a barely concealed accusation. He stood in the doorway, his perfectly coiffed dark hair and immaculately tailored suit a stark contrast to my dust-covered jeans and charcoal-smeared hands. His gaze was fixed on the wreckage, then flicked to me, filled with a manufactured disappointment. It must have fallen," I stammered, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I distinctly remembered placing the fragile model securely on the drafting table before stepping out for a quick coffee. My movements had been precise, deliberate. "Fallen?" Liam scoffed, stepping carefully over a miniature palm tree that lay like a fallen giant. He picked up a tiny, broken gazebo, turning it over in his fingers with a theatrical sigh. "Clara, this is impossible. It was glued down. Secure, you've been so stressed lately, so distracted. Are you absolutely certain you didn't perhaps knock it over yourself in a moment of?" He trailed off, letting the implication hang heavy in the air, allowing my own mind to fill in the blank with carelessness, confusion, unhinged grief. His gaze was pitying, yet beneath it, I sensed a cold, calculating flicker, like a predator observing its prey. Since Elias' sudden death, Liam, my colleague and Elias' longtime protege, had been an ever-present shadow. He'd stepped in to help me navigate the unexpected complexities of Elias' will, which, to everyone's surprise, left me the majority stake in Thorne and Associates, the prestigious architectural firm Elias had painstakingly built from the ground up. Liam had always been the golden boy, groomed to inherit Elias' mantle. Now, I was the one holding the reins, the unexpected heir, and he was the one constantly, subtly, undermining my every move. "You just need to rest, Clara," he'd insist with a sigh, guiding me gently away from intricate blueprints when I'd paused, lost in thought, trying to piece together Elias' last, enigmatic instructions. "Let me handle the client calls. You're simply not quite yourself these days. The grief, it's a powerful thing." He'd even started to correct my recollections of meetings, always with that gentle, concerned tone that left me questioning my own memory, my own sanity. "Did Mr. Davies approve the updated schematics for the Riverwalk project?" I asked him one afternoon, trying to cling to some semblance of normalcy, to grasp at the whirlwind of firm business that now seemed to spin just beyond my reach. Liam frowned, rubbing his temples as if burdened by my confusion. "Mr. Davies? Oh, I don't think so, Clara. Are you certain you discussed it with him today? Your memory, it's been a little hazy since Elias." He let the sentence trail off, allowing the unspoken implication to hang heavy in the air. "Since Elias died, you're losing your mind. You're falling apart." A shard of a memory, a snippet of Elias' gruff, kind wisdom, pierced through the fog of my confusion, sharp and clear. "Always trust your gut, Clara, especially when someone is trying to tell you it's wrong. Your instincts are your most powerful tool in this business and in life." Liam's sister, Bethany, a sleek, sharply dressed woman who managed public relations for several high-end clients, started dropping by the office with alarming regularity. She'd arrive with elaborate fruit baskets and even more elaborate expressions of sympathy. Her perfume, expensive and cloying, lingered long after she left. "You poor dear," Bethany purred one morning, her perfectly manicured hand resting on my arm as her shrewd eyes darted around Elia's spacious, art-filled office, now technically mine. She surveyed the abstract sculptures, the vintage drafting tools, the carefully curated collection of architectural books, assessing their value with a clinical eye. "It's just so much for you to manage all this, with everything happening. Liam is so worried. We all are, truly." Her sympathy felt as genuine as a $3 bill, a flimsy prop in a poorly staged play. The incident with the Sunset Ridge model was merely a precursor, a subtle opening act. My personal files on the firm's main server, crucial for Elia's unfinished projects and sensitive client data, began to disappear. then reappear, subtly altered. Dates shifted, key contacts vanished from lists, only to be found by Liam a day or two later, with a sigh of exaggerated relief and a shake of his head. "Clara, you left these confidential drafts open on the public network again," he'd say, a patient, almost weary smile plastered on his face. "It's a huge security risk. You really must be more careful. It's so unlike you." It was unlike me. I was meticulous, almost obsessively so. My internal alarm bells, once faint, were now clanging with an insistent, frantic rhythm. Then came the conversation that shattered the fragile illusion of my sanity, ripping through the veil of grief and self-doubt. I was staying late one evening, hunched over my desk in my own office, trying to reconstruct a missing client brief for the ambitious Green Oasis project. The firm was quiet, save for the hum of the servers. I heard Liam's voice from Elia's old office, which he'd taken to using for private calls, claiming my office was too small for proper concentration. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of light escaping into the darkened hallway. "No, she's resting, completely unhinged, Bate." Liam's voice was low, conspiratorial, almost a whisper, but it carried clearly in the stillness. "I'm telling you." Mixing up client names almost gave the wrong presentation yesterday for the Sterling Tower bid. "It's getting worse, much worse. The firm's reputation is at stake." A pause, my breath caught in my throat, a cold dread seeping into my bones. "The firm, it's a gold mine," he continued, his voice dropping further, but I could still discern the avaricious gleam beneath his words. "It needs protecting from her, obviously. We can't let her just run it into the ground, or, well, squander Elias' legacy. It's too important." I strained to hear Bethany's muffled reply, a tiny, indistinct murmur. Then Liam spoke again, and this time his voice was laced with something ugly, something triumphant, chillingly devoid of emotion. "Don't worry, sis. I've got a plan, a solid one. By the time I'm done, everyone will see she's not capable of managing Thorne and Associates. It's for her own good, really." I risked a quick, furtive glance through the crack in the door. He was pacing by Elia's old, magnificent mahogany desk, phone pressed to his ear. And as he listened to Bethany, a slow, predatory smirk stretched across his face. It was a look I'd never seen on him before, a mask dropped to reveal a chilling, calculating villain, and it froze me to the bone. He thought I was oblivious, lost in my grief, a broken, easy target. My heart hammered against my ribs, not with fear, but with a sudden, cold, righteous fury. He thought I was unraveling. He had no idea Elias, with his gruff kindness and sharp insights, had instilled in me a resilience far tougher than he could ever imagine. He had prepared me for storms like these. Let him think he's winning, I thought, a grim resolve settling over me like solid granite. The real blueprints are about to be drawn, and he won't be reading them until it's too late. The days that followed were a chess match of psychological warfare, with my perceived sanity as the pawn. My high-stakes conceptual designs for a new urban park project, the Green Oasis, a project I poured my soul into, mysteriously vanished from my encrypted cloud storage. Liam, ever the helpful colleague, discovered them 2 days later on a public-facing company server, nestled beside a deeply flawed, amateurish version of the project budget, clearly not mine. "Clara, honey," he said with a sigh, his voice dripping with faux concern, "you left these sensitive files exposed again. Anyone could have accessed them. And this budget, it's completely unrealistic. A project of this scale needs meticulous financial planning. You know how important accuracy is, especially for the Green Oasis." He handed them over with a patronizing pat on my arm, as if dealing with a particularly slow, recalcitrant child. I forced a weak, bewildered apology, my stomach churning with disgust. I hadn't touched those files in days, and I certainly hadn't altered the budget in such a ludicrous manner. He was setting me up. I began to keep a hidden log on a secure, personal tablet, one that Liam didn't know about. In it, I meticulously recorded every incident, every altered file, every forgotten conversation, every subtle manipulation. August 12th, Liam claimed I missed a client call with Harmon Inc. He stated I was unresponsive. I was on the call, engaged and prepared. He had already called them back, rescheduling behind my back, saying I was indisposed. August 14th. Liam told Mr. Jenkins I'd forgotten to send the revised proposal for the downtown revitalization. It was sent days ago, with a red receipt confirming delivery. The list grew longer each day, a damning indictment of his carefully constructed narrative of my decline. Bethany's visits grew more frequent, her pronouncements more direct, more pointed. "Clara, sweetie," she purred one afternoon, perched elegantly on Elia's old mahogany desk, her eyes scanning the office for anything valuable. "You really should let Liam handle the day-to-day operations. All these complex contracts, the demanding client relations, the constant deadlines. It must be terribly overwhelming for you right now, with everything you're going through." "I'm managing," I said, my voice deliberately flat, trying to sound just a touch uncertain. "I'm still learning the ropes of running a firm this size." "Are you, though?" Bethany pressed, her voice laced with manufactured concern, her eyes narrowed slightly. "Liam was saying you seemed quite confused about the latest zoning regulations for the downtown project just the other day. He had to clarify everything for you in detail, apparently spent hours explaining it." A blatant lie. I had personally researched and confirmed those regulations myself just last week, even double-checked them with the city planning office. "He's just trying to protect the firm, of course, for Elia's sake." "Liam is very diligent," I replied, offering nothing more, my expression carefully blank. "He just wants what's best for you. We both do. It's such a shame Elias isn't here. He'd know exactly what to do to support you through this." The unspoken subtext hung heavy in the air, a poisonous miasma. Support you right out of the firm, into oblivion. Elias' voice, a ghost of guidance, echoed in my mind, strong and clear. "When they try to dismantle your work, Clara, that's when you build something stronger, something undeniable." I knew I needed more than a log. I needed to bring in a new architect for my own strategic design, a master builder of truth. The following morning, I called Arthur. He'd been Elias' trusted legal counsel for decades, a man renowned for his shrewdness, his unwavering loyalty, and his formidable reputation in corporate law. His voice, when he answered, was as crisp and unyielding as ever. "Arthur," I began, keeping my voice light and calm, almost conversational. "It's Clara, Clara Hayes. I was hoping to schedule a meeting to discuss some aspects of Elias' will, just to ensure I fully understand all my responsibilities as the firm's new principal. There are a few clauses I'd like to clarify." "Clara," Arthur replied, his tone professional but warm, a rare softening I appreciated. "Of course. How about Thursday morning, 10:00 a.m.? My office is clear." "Perfect," I said, a small, grim smile touching my lips. "Thank you, Arthur. I look forward to it." When Liam arrived at the office that evening, he found me slumped over my desk in my office, surrounded by scattered blueprints and empty coffee cups, looking utterly defeated. I deliberately smudged charcoal on my cheek and run a hand through my hair to create a disheveled, frantic look. My eyes were a little red-rimmed from forcing myself to stay awake for hours, simulating exhaustion. "Rough day, love?" he asked, his voice oozing concern, almost a purr. He came closer, reaching across the desk to gently pat my hand, his touch sending a shiver of revulsion down my spine. I nodded mutely, letting a single, well-timed tear escape and trail down my cheek. "Just so much, Liam," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "It's all so much." "I've been thinking," he began, his tone serious, almost paternal. "And I know this might be difficult to hear, but I am truly worried about you, Clara." I looked up at him, my eyes wide and seemingly unfocused, like someone lost in a haze. This fog you're in, the confusion, the exhaustion. It's more than just grief, I think. It's a deeper kind of distress." He paused, squeezing my hand gently, his thumb rubbing small circles on my skin. "I know a specialist, Dr. Evelyn Reed, a really respected psychiatrist. She helps people who are struggling with executive function and acute stress. She has a wonderful reputation. Maybe it would be a good idea for you to just talk to her, for your own good, of course, to help you get back on your feet, to clear your head." His eyes searched mine, looking for agreement, for surrender, for the moment my will would finally break. I let my gaze drop, feigning a weary confusion. "A doctor," I murmured, as if the thought itself were overwhelming. I don't know, Liam, I just feel so tired." "Just think about it, love," he said softly, his voice full of feigned compassion. "She could really help. She's discreet, professional, just a chat to start." A flicker of something, a counterplan, a new design taking shape, sparked behind my eyes. He mistook it for the vacant stare he was so keen to cultivate. "Okay," I whispered almost imperceptibly. I'll think about it." He smiled, a genuine, satisfied smile this time, a flash of triumph in his eyes. He thought he was one step closer to dismantling me, to seeing me institutionalized. He had no idea I was already sketching out his downfall, brick by painstaking brick. Liam's Dr. Evelyn Reed was undoubtedly part of his carefully constructed trap, a professional handpicked to rubber stamp his narrative of my supposed decline. I wasn't about to walk into an assessment designed to validate his lies. Elias had always emphasized the critical importance of independent verification, of seeking multiple, unbiased opinions. Never take the first offer, Clara, or the first opinion, especially if it's offered too freely. Always dig deeper. My search for psychiatrists in the city was thorough, meticulous. I looked for impeccable credentials, unbiased patient reviews, any history of ethical complaints or questionable associations. Dr. Julian Vance's name, unrelated to Arthur Vance but equally reputable, appeared consistently. He was known as a respected, objective professional with a strong focus on cognitive clarity and trauma-informed care. Perfect. I booked an appointment for the following week under my maiden name, Clara Miller, using an old, secure email address and a credit card Liam didn't know about. An untraceable ghost in the machine. My next move was to expose Liam's own vulnerabilities, his carefully hidden weaknesses. He was usually so meticulous about shredding documents, leaving no trace of his personal dealings. But his growing overconfidence, fueled by my feigned decline, had made him careless. While he was at a supposed client lunch, one I strongly suspected was nothing more than a cover for his illicit activities, I entered his personal office, a space he guarded jealously, even from me. Tucked under a pile of glossy architectural magazines in his bottom desk drawer, behind a stack of old blueprints, I found them. Personal bank statements. Not the firm's accounts, but ones in his name only. My breath hitched. The figures were staggering. Massive, unexplained cash withdrawals, extravagant luxury purchases from high-end boutiques, and recurring, substantial payments to an online gambling site. This wasn't just poor judgment. This was a financial abyss, a gaping hole he was desperate to fill. So much for his concern about my ability to manage the firm's finances. He was clearly in a desperate, precarious position. I carefully photographed each statement with my phone, ensuring no fingerprints were left behind, then replaced them exactly as I'd found them, leaving no sign of my intrusion. Elia's spacious corner office, where Liam now spent most of his time making private calls, pacing like a caged predator, became my next focus. I'd purchased a tiny, voice-activated recorder, no bigger than a flash drive, from a discreet electronics store downtown. After hours one evening, while Liam was out, I slipped into the office. My hands trembled slightly as I secreted the device behind a heavy, decorative architectural bust on the bookshelf, angling it perfectly towards his usual pacing spot by the panoramic window overlooking the city skyline. It felt like planting a silent witness, a digital ear to capture his deceit. A few days later, my performance of declining mental acuity was in full swing, reaching its crescendo. I forgot a crucial meeting with a key investor, leading to a flurry of frantic, theatrical phone calls from Liam, who apologized profusely on my behalf. I misplaced my office keys, only for Liam to discover them hanging innocuously on the break room corkboard, with a patronizing sigh and a head shake. "Clara, you left these in the break room again," he said, his voice laced with weary disappointment. "You really must be more careful. Someone could have easily walked in." I forced a look of bewildered apology, my stomach churning with the effort to suppress my rage. He was setting me up perfectly, laying the groundwork for my public disgrace. That evening, I was in the quiet design studio, ostensibly struggling with a simple sketch for a residential renovation, making a deliberate mess of the lines and perspective. The office was mostly empty, save for the hum of the computers. I heard Liam's voice from Elias' office, the door slightly ajar. He was on the phone, his tone hushed but jubilant, barely containing his excitement. "Yeah, Bethany, it's all falling into place," he whispered, his voice resonating with smug satisfaction. "She's completely gone. It's almost too easy, honestly. She's practically handing the firm over." My heart hammered against my ribs, a rapid, frantic drum. This was it. "I've got the assessment lined up," he continued, his voice dropping further, but I could still hear every word with startling clarity. "Next Tuesday. Found two perfect professionals, Dr. Reed and Mr. Miller. They come highly recommended for delicate situations like these. They'll see what I see, what everyone will see soon enough, that she's unfit to lead." I gripped my charcoal pencil so tightly my knuckles turned white. The small, inert recorder in my blazer pocket suddenly felt like a ticking bomb, waiting to explode. Perfect indeed, I thought, a grim, almost imperceptible smile touching my lips. He was walking right into the snare I'd meticulously crafted, strand by careful strand. He was so focused on my supposed collapse that he couldn't see the ground beneath his own feet crumbling, could not hear the distant roar of the wrecking ball I was preparing. The recorder sat innocuously behind the architectural bust for 2 more agonizing days. I diligently checked its battery, my movements furtive, a knot of adrenaline tightening in my stomach every time Liam entered Elia's office. I had to ensure it captured everything. Then on Saturday morning, he took a particularly long, animated call, his voice occasionally rising in volume. I busied myself in the archives, pretending to sort old blueprints, my ears straining to catch snippets of his conversation. But it was Bethany's arrival later that afternoon that provided the ultimate, damning evidence. They thought I was upstairs, resting after a particularly confused lunch where I'd feigned forgetting a key client's name. Instead, I was tucked away in the small, rarely used storage closet just outside Elia's office, the tiny voice recorder running, connected wirelessly to a discreet earpiece I'd purchased. I could hear every word, every nuance of their monstrous plot. "So, Tuesday is Judgment Day," Bethany's voice, sharp and avaricious, crackled through the earpiece. "Are you absolutely certain they're on board?" "No cold feet." "As good as gold, sis," Liam replied, and I could practically hear the smugness in his tone, a sound that made my stomach churn. "Dr. Reed and Mr. Miller are fully briefed. They understand the sensitivities of the situation. The main thing is to emphasize her emotional volatility, her disorganization, the memory lapses that have worsened since Elia's death. It's all in the notes I sent them. And the reckless spending," Bethany prompted, her voice sharpening with a greedy edge. "We need to make sure they know she's utterly incapable of managing the firm's capital. Elia's legacy can't fall into ruin." "Oh, I've got that covered," Liam said smoothly, a chilling confidence in his voice. "I'll mention how she's been talking about wanting to liquidate our prime development properties for pennies on the dollar to invest in a sustainable energy commune. How she tried to buy a private jet for spiritual journeys to reconnect with Elia's. Little things that paint the picture of a mind unhinged." My blood ran cold. He was manufacturing outright falsehoods, constructing a fiction so elaborate it was almost believable. And once they declare her incompetent, Bethany's voice was practically purring with satisfaction. "Then you, as her loving colleague and Elia's true heir, step in to manage her affairs, protect the firm from her, and from anyone who might exploit her. It will all be perfectly legal, perfectly above board." The hypocrisy was breathtaking, a suffocating blanket of lies. "Honestly, Bate, it's a relief," Liam confided, his voice lowering slightly. "Those gambling debts I mentioned, this will clear everything up. I'll be able to pay back everything I owe and more. We'll finally be secure, set for life." Gambling debts. So the bank statements were just the tip of the iceberg. This wasn't just about greed, it was about a desperate, calculated takeover. Bethany giggled, a sound like shattered glass. "Poor Clara, it's almost a kindness what we're doing. Putting her out of her misery, taking the burden of the firm off her hands." The callous disregard for my life, my future, their willingness to destroy me for their financial gain, solidified every ounce of resolve within me. I retrieved the recorder later that evening, my hand steady, my mind clear. The recording was damningly, unequivocally clear. My appointment with Dr. Julian Vance was the following Monday. He was a distinguished man in his late 50s, with perceptive, intelligent eyes and a quiet, analytical demeanor. I didn't play the victim. I didn't cry. I laid out the facts dispassionately, methodically. Elia's death, Liam's escalating campaign of psychological manipulation, the carefully orchestrated accidents, the overheard conversations, the financial irregularities I'd discovered in his personal accounts. I spoke for nearly 3 hours, my voice steady, my presentation precise. He listened patiently, occasionally asking for clarification, his gaze unwavering. "And how has this pattern of behavior from Liam made you feel, Miss Hayes?" he asked, his voice calm. "Initially bewildered and profoundly self-doubting," I admitted, my voice tight with remembered pain. But now, utterly betrayed, furious, and resolved. By the end of our session, Dr. Vance was unequivocal. He closed his notepad and leaned forward, his gaze direct. "Miss Hayes," he said, his voice firm, "you are experiencing significant emotional distress, directly attributable to your colleague's manipulative and emotionally abusive behavior. However, your cognitive function, your ability to organize, analyze, and present this complex information clearly, is demonstrably intact. In fact, your resourcefulness in gathering this evidence speaks to remarkable mental acuity and resilience under extreme pressure." He provided me with a comprehensive, notarized report detailing his findings, a document that affirmed my sanity in stark contrast to Liam's fabricated narrative. It was my intellectual armor, my irrefutable shield. That afternoon, I met Arthur Vance. I sat across from him in his quiet, leather-bound office, feeling a surge of confidence knowing I had a formidable ally. I played him the recording of Liam and Bethany, his normally stoic face tightening, his eyes flashing with controlled fury as their treacherous words filled the dignified space. "The audacity," he murmured, his voice low and dangerous when the recording finished. "The unmitigated gall." I then handed him copies of Liam's personal bank statements, laid bare his gambling debts and reckless spending, and finally, Dr. Julian Vance's report. "He's planning to have me assessed by his own hand-picked professionals tomorrow, Arthur. He intends to have me declared unfit to run the firm, to seize control." Arthur's expression was grim, but a steely resolve settled on his features. "He won't succeed, Clara, not with this." He tapped the report and the recorder. "This is a clear case of corporate fraud, defamation, and attempted hostile takeover by psychological means. We have him." He then outlined the legal strategy, detailing the injunctions, the criminal charges, the public relations counteroffensive. The legal machinery was now in motion. That evening, Liam approached me in the break room, his face a mask of tender concern, his eyes gleaming with barely suppressed triumph. "Clara, darling," he said, taking my hands, his touch now sickening to me. "Remember I mentioned Dr. Reed and Mr. Miller. They're able to come tomorrow for that informal consultation, just to see how they can help you through this difficult transition. Just a quick chat, nothing formal, just to give you some peace of mind." His eyes, however, held a predatory gleam, a hunter's anticipation. "Oh," I said, feigning a weary resignation, my voice thin. "Tomorrow. All right, Liam. If you think it will help." I gave a small, defeated sigh. He squeezed my hands, a possessive gesture. "I know it will, love, I know it will. They'll set your mind at ease." He had no idea what kind of help was truly on its way for him. The morning of the consultation dawned crisp and clear, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within me. But beneath the anxiety was a cold, hard core of anticipation. Today the charade would crumble. I spent the morning in a carefully orchestrated display of disorganization and distress. I lost my glasses, then found them perched on top of my head, looking utterly bewildered. I forgot a key detail about a long-standing project during a team huddle, looking lost and confused when Liam corrected me with a patronizing tone. He watched me, his face a mask of sorrow, but I caught the flicker of triumph in his eyes, the suppressed satisfaction of a puppet master pulling his strings. "Are you sure you're up to this today, Clara?" he asked, his voice dripping with false concern as I listlessly pushed my untouched breakfast around on my plate. "We can always reschedule if you're not feeling strong enough. Your well-being is paramount." "No, no," I murmured, looking down at my plate, my voice barely audible. "It's probably for the best to get some professional input. Maybe they can help me feel more lucid." I let my voice tremble just enough, a tremor of fear that wasn't feigned. He patted my hand. "That's my brave girl. Just relax, darling," he said, popping his head into my office later, his tone falsely reassuring. "Dr. Reed and Mr. Miller are very understanding. There's nothing to be afraid of. Just tell them what you've told me." "Okay, Liam," I whispered, pulling my chair closer to the desk, feigning nervousness. Around noon, his phone rang. He answered it in his office, his voice low, guarded. I strained to hear, but couldn't make out the words. A few minutes later, he came back to my office door. "That was Bethany," he said a little too casually, his eyes dancing with excitement. "Just calling to check in on you. She sends her well wishes and hopes everything goes smoothly." Liar. I knew Bethany. She wasn't calling to send well wishes. She was calling for a status update on her cut of the spoils. Later, while Liam was in his office, presumably making last-minute calls to his professionals, I picked up the intercom receiver on my desk. I'd seen him dial Bethany's number earlier. With trembling fingers, I silently pressed the redial button, connecting to his current call. My heart thudded in my chest. "And you're sure she's properly softened up?" Bethany's voice, sharp and eager, filled my ear through the earpiece. "Like butter, sis," Liam chuckled, a dry, unpleasant sound. "She's barely coherent, keeps talking to herself, staring blankly at the wall. The doctors will take one look at her and know I'm right. She'll be signed away in no time." "Is our little golden goose ready to be carved?" Bethany practically purred. "Just about," Liam replied, his voice smug. "By this evening, we should have a clear path to ensuring Clara's security and our own. Our financial freedom, Bate, it's almost within reach." The line went dead as Bethany presumably hung up. I carefully replaced the receiver, the phrase "little golden goose" echoing in my ears, fueling the icy fire in my veins. They saw me as nothing more than an asset to be plundered, a means to an end. At precisely 2 o'clock, the firm's main door chimed. Liam straightened his tie, his face arranging itself into a mask of solemn concern. He glanced at me, where I sat hunched over my desk, looking pale and disoriented, my posture conveying utter helplessness. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, a director cueing his tragic actress for the final, heartbreaking scene. He opened the door. "Dr. Evelyn Reed, Mr. Robert Miller, please come in. Thank you so much for coming." His voice was grave, filled with manufactured respect, but as he turned to usher them into my office, his eyes met mine over their shoulders. There was a triumphant glint in them, a flash of pure, unadulterated greed that made my blood run cold. "Clara, darling," he said, his voice soft and solicitous, the perfect concerned colleague. "Dr. Reed and Mr. Miller are here for that consultation we discussed. They're here to help you." The game was on. Dr. Evelyn Reed was a woman with severe glasses and a brisk, no-nonsense air that bordered on condescension. Mr. Robert Miller, younger and more overtly solicitous, carried a professional clipboard and surveyed the room with practiced ease, his gaze flicking over me dismissively. They exuded an air of objective professionalism, but there was a distinct lack of genuine warmth, an unsettlingly clinical detachment. "Miss Hayes," Dr. Reed began, her voice crisp and formal, devoid of any true empathy. "Thank you for agreeing to see us. Your colleague, Mr. Hayes, has expressed some serious concerns about your well-being, and we're just here to talk, to understand how we might be able to help you cope during this difficult time." I nodded mutely, twisting a pen in my lap, my gaze fixed on a point somewhere beyond her shoulder, as if my mind were elsewhere, lost in a fog. I made sure to look utterly lost, fragile, teetering on the edge. Liam, meanwhile, launched into his meticulously rehearsed performance. "It's just been so incredibly difficult since Elia's passed," he said, his voice thick with feigned emotion, a catch in his throat. He gestured towards me with a helpless, almost desperate air. She's simply not herself, doctors, forgetting things constantly, important things, crucial client deadlines. Sometimes she just stares into space, completely detached, for hours on end. It breaks my heart to see her like this." He recounted the scattered Sunset Ridge model, the misplaced green Oasis files, the confusion over project details, all the carefully orchestrated incidents now presented as undeniable evidence of my deteriorating mind. "And her judgment," he continued, shaking his head sadly, a tear welling in his eye that he quickly dabbed away with his silk handkerchief. "One minute she's making outlandish proposals, the next she's overwhelmed by the simplest administrative task. She's become erratic. I'm at my wits' end, doctors. I just want the firm to be stable again, for Elia's legacy to be protected." It was a truly masterful performance of a worried, burdened colleague, a man carrying the weight of the world. Mr. Miller opened his clipboard, his pen poised. Miss Hayes, he said, his voice smooth and reassuring, but his eyes held a clinical detachment. Can you tell us how you've been feeling lately? I looked at him, my eyes wide and unfocused, as if the question itself were too complex. Overwhelmed, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Just very overwhelmed and sad. Elias. I miss Elias so much, it's just so hard. Of course, grief is profound, Dr. Reed interjected smoothly, as if reciting from a script. But your colleague mentions a level of disorganization that goes beyond normal grieving. For instance, he says you've had trouble recalling recent events, even important ones. Is that true? I hesitated, looking from her to Liam, then back again, my brow furrowed as if in genuine confusion. Sometimes, I mumbled, my voice trailing off. Things blur, I can't always remember. I picked at a loose thread on my blazer, feigning distress. And your plans for the firm, Miss Hayes? Mr. Miller asked, his gaze unwavering. Your colleague mentioned you've been talking about making some rather impulsive financial decisions, liquidating valuable assets, unusual investments that could jeopardize the firm's future. This was Liam's fabricated narrative about selling properties and buying private jets for spiritual journeys. I blinked slowly, as if the concept of finances were foreign to me. The firm, I said, as if the word itself were distant, hazy. It's a lot of money. It's confusing. Elia's always handled it. I don't understand the numbers. I pressed my fingers to my temples, feigning a headache. Liam leaned forward, his expression earnest, his eyes filled with calculated concern. You see, she can't even discuss it coherently. Just last week, she was adamant about wanting to invest heavily in a completely unproven space tourism startup. Our funds gone just like that. She has no concept of financial risk. A blatant lie. I had simply commented on an article about emerging technologies, a casual thought shared during a lunch break. But I just looked down, offering no correction, letting his words hang in the air, damning me further in their eyes. Bethany, who had arrived precisely on cue and settled into a chair in the corner, a picture of concerned sisterly support, chose this moment to pipe up. It's true, doctors, we're all so worried. She was even talking about redecorating Elias' office with glow-in-the-dark paint, saying it would bring light into the darkness. It's just so unlike her. She's always been so grounded. More lies, effortlessly crafted. I had simply commented on the drabness of the old decor and a quirky idea I'd seen in a design magazine. The assessors exchanged a significant, knowing look. Dr. Reed cleared her throat, her voice taking on a graver tone, the performance reaching its crescendo. Miss Hayes, your colleague also mentioned you've been neglecting your personal care, erratic sleep patterns, difficulty focusing for extended periods. I try, I whispered, my voice barely audible, thick with feigned emotional fragility. I allowed a single, perfect tear to trace a path down my cheek. I looked as broken and vulnerable as I possibly could. I needed them to believe I was on the verge of complete collapse, to fully commit to their prearranged diagnosis. Liam watched me, his face a mask of sorrow, but I caught the flicker of triumph in his eyes, the almost imperceptible twitch of a muscle in his jaw. He thought he had me. He thought this was the final act, the curtain call on my sanity, and the firm was now his for the taking. He had no idea the real demolition was about to begin. The smirk on Liam's face was the cue I'd been waiting for. The air in the room was thick with his impending victory, a palpable aura of smug satisfaction. Dr. Reed was already reaching into her briefcase, her fingers brushing against what I presumed was the paperwork that would begin the process of stripping me of my authority at Thorne and Associates, of my very autonomy. I took a slow, deliberate breath, drawing strength from the memory of Elia's unwavering belief in me. Then, with a quiet strength that rippled through the room, I straightened up. The hunched, defeated posture vanished. My shoulders squared. I met Dr. Reed's gaze, my own now clear, sharp, and icily calm. The transformation was so abrupt it visibly startled both professionals. Liam, across the room, froze, his smirk faltering, replaced by a flicker of raw, dawning panic. Before you recommend any intervention, doctors, I said, my voice steady, resonant, no longer the weak, wavering whisper they'd been hearing. There's something you all need to hear. It pertains to the truth, a concept that seems to have entirely escaped my colleague and his family. Liam's face went from pale to ashen in seconds. "Clara, darling, what are you?" he stammered, his voice losing its smooth composure. I ignored him, my eyes locked on his, a cold fire burning in their depths. I reached into my blazer pocket and pulled out the small digital recorder, holding it up for all to see. I believe this will provide some much-needed clarity for everyone present. With a decisive click, I pressed play. The office was immediately filled with Liam's voice, then Bethany's, their hushed, conspiratorial tones amplified, echoing damningly in the shocked silence. "No, she's resting, completely unhinged, Bate. I'm telling you. The firm, it's a goldmine. It needs protecting from her. Obviously, by the time I'm done, everyone will see she's not capable." Liam's jaw went slack. His eyes, fixed on the recorder, widened in horror. Bethany, across the room, looked like she'd been struck by lightning. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out, only a strangled, pathetic gasp. The recording continued, relentless, a brutal exposé of their deceit. Dr. Reed and Mr. Miller are briefed. They understand the sensitivities. They'll help us paint the picture. Dr. Reed and Mr. Miller exchanged horrified, disbelieving glances. The color drained from Mr. Miller's face, while Dr. Reed's turned a blotchy crimson. Their professional masks crumbled, revealing shock and fear. "Those gambling debts I mentioned, this will clear everything up. We'll finally be secure. Poor Clara, it's almost a kindness what we're doing. Is our little golden goose ready to be carved?" When the recording ended, the silence in the office was deafening, broken only by Liam's shallow, frantic breathing. He stared at the recorder in my hand as if it were a venomous snake, poised to strike. Bethany looked utterly aghast, a tableau of stunned terror. "An informal consultation, you called it, Liam?" I asked, my voice dripping with scorn, each word a precisely aimed dart. "Or was it a meticulously planned corporate coup, designed to defraud me of my legal inheritance of this firm and seize control by falsely declaring me mentally unfit?" Dr. Reed sputtered, her professional facade shattered. "Miss Hayes, we had no idea. We were acting solely on the information provided by your colleague. We were misled." "Information?" I cut her off, my voice rising, filling the room with my newfound authority. "Or a carefully scripted fabrication? Perhaps you'd be interested in a truly objective opinion." I reached for the manila envelope I'd placed discreetly beside me and pulled out Dr. Julian Vance's notarized report. "This is from Dr. Julian Vance, a psychiatrist whose reputation, I assure you, is beyond reproach. He finds me perfectly competent, though under considerable duress due to my colleague's machinations." I tossed the report onto the conference table in front of them. Mr. Miller snatched it up, his hands trembling as he scanned the pages. Dr. Reed peered over his shoulder, her earlier smugness completely obliterated by panic. "And speaking of competence," I continued, my gaze returning to Liam, who now looked like a cornered rat, trapped and exposed. I produced the second envelope. "It seems the only one whose judgment is truly impaired by financial desperation is my colleague." I scattered copies of his personal bank statements across the table, revealing his massive gambling debts, the unexplained luxury purchases, the gaping financial abyss he was so desperate to fill. Desperate enough to try and steal a firm, wouldn't you say, doctors? Desperate enough to destroy a person's reputation, to fabricate an entire narrative of mental decline, all to get what he wants. I stood up, my posture radiating an unyielding strength, my voice ringing with authority. "My lawyer, Arthur, has copies of all of this. The recording, Dr. Julian Vance's report, Liam's incriminating financial records. He has already filed an emergency injunction to remove Liam Hayes from all firm operations and is pursuing charges for corporate fraud, defamation, and attempted grand larceny." Bethany let out a small, strangled gasp, a sound of pure, unadulterated fear. Her pathetic act of concern dissolved into genuine terror. "Oh, and Dr. Reed?" I added, turning to the now sweating psychiatrist, who looked like she was about to faint. "Arthur also found some rather interesting information regarding previous inquiries into your ethical practices. Something about questionable diagnoses for private gain, a pattern of professional misconduct. I'm sure you wouldn't want another such inquiry, would you? Especially one tied to a high-profile case like this." Dr. Reed looked utterly panicked. She shot to her feet, her chair scraping loudly across the floor. "This is outrageous. We were deceived. We are leaving." Mr. Miller was already stuffing papers back into his clipboard, his face pale, his earlier practiced ease replaced by a desperate scramble. We had no part in any scheme. Liam finally found his voice, a torrent of furious denials and wild accusations erupting from him, his face contorted in a mask of impotent rage. She's lying. She's the crazy one. This is all a trick. You can't believe her. It's a setup. Bethany just stared, her face a mask of stunned, horrified silence, the color drained from her features. Dr. Reed and Mr. Miller practically tripped over each other in their haste to get to the door, muttering apologies and disavowals as they fled the office as if it were on fire. I watched them go, a cold, hard satisfaction settling deep within me. Liam was still raving, pointing a shaking finger at me, his voice cracking. "The true assessment of your character, Liam," I said quietly, my voice cutting through his pathetic tirade with the precision of a scalpel, "is just beginning." The hasty retreat of the consultants left a vacuum in the office, quickly filled by Liam's sputtering rage and Bethany's silent, ashen-faced terror. He paced wildly, running a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair, now disheveled. You manipulative bitch," Liam finally roared, his face contorted with fury and disbelief. "You set us up, this is all your twisted game. You think you can just play us like this?" "My game?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet, each word landing with the weight of truth. "Or yours, Liam? The one where you gaslight your grieving colleague, try to steal a firm that isn't yours, and have its rightful owner declared mentally incompetent. That game." The firm's main door chimed again, a sharp, decisive sound that sliced through Liam's tirade, silencing him instantly. He froze, his eyes darting towards the entrance as if it were a trap, a dark premonition seizing him. I, however, simply smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile. "That will be Arthur," I said calmly, rising from my chair, my voice ringing with a newfound authority. "With the firm's security, I imagine. To escort you and Bethany out." Arthur entered, his stern face grimly professional, flanked by two formidable, uniformed security guards. Their presence alone was enough to send a clear message. "Liam Hayes," Arthur announced, his voice devoid of emotion, like a judge delivering a verdict. "Bethany Hayes, you are both being escorted from the premises. All company access, all privileges have been immediately revoked. Further legal action, including criminal charges, is pending." The guards stepped forward, their movements efficient and unwavering. Liam didn't resist as one of them informed him of his rights and, with practiced ease, cuffed his hands behind his back. He looked utterly defeated, his eyes darting wildly around Elias' office, once his perceived throne, now a crumbling monument to his ambition and greed. He was a man utterly broken by his own deception. Bethany was weeping openly now, a pathetic, broken figure, her expensive clothes disheveled, as the second officer gently but firmly led her to her feet. "You'll regret this, Clara," Liam spat as they led him away, his voice hoarse with impotent rage, his eyes burning with a desperate, dying hatred. "You'll drown in this firm. You're not strong enough to run it. No one will want you after this. Alone and in control of my own life and the legacy Elias left behind, Liam," I replied, my voice steady, clear, and utterly resolute. "It's a trade I'm more than willing to make, and I'm stronger than you ever gave me credit for." The aftermath was swift and brutal, just as Arthur had predicted. The evidence I provided was overwhelming. The damning recording, Dr. Julian Vance's unimpeachable report, Liam's own incriminating financial records, the documented instances of his professional misconduct. It all painted an undeniable picture of corporate fraud, calculated cruelty, and a desperate attempt at a hostile takeover. The firm's board, initially shocked into silence, swiftly convened an emergency meeting. Faced with irrefutable proof, they unanimously solidified my position as principal, recognizing my legitimate claim and, more importantly, my proven competence under duress. All ties with Liam and Bethany were immediately and irrevocably severed. Liam faced severe legal consequences. The Crown Prosecution Service, armed with Arthur's meticulously prepared case, pursued criminal charges for corporate fraud and embezzlement. His professional reputation, once stellar, was utterly destroyed. He was disbarred from the architectural board, his name synonymous with deceit. He ultimately faced a significant jail sentence, a stark reminder of the cost of unchecked greed. Bethany, while avoiding prison time by cooperating fully and providing additional testimony against Liam, found her social standing evaporated. The high-profile clients she once managed quickly distanced themselves, her name now synonymous with betrayal. The little golden goose they had so eagerly sought to carve up had instead led to their ruin, leaving them with nothing but the bitter taste of their own avarice. I reclaimed the firm, piece by piece, my own strength growing with each step. The initial shock among the staff gave way to a renewed sense of purpose, a collective sigh of relief. I held open, honest meetings with every department, addressing the confusion and distrust Liam had sown, rebuilding morale with transparency and empathy. The firm felt lighter, cleaner, more collaborative, without his oppressive, manipulative presence. Elia's vision, once clouded by Liam's ambition, began to shine through again. There were scars, of course. The betrayal cut deep, a profound wound that would take time and conscious effort to heal. The emotional toll had been immense, but with each passing day, I felt stronger, more confident in my leadership, more assured in my own instincts. A few months after Liam's ousting, I sat in Elia's old office, the late afternoon sun streaming through the panoramic window, illuminating the now vibrant space. Arthur was with me, going over some final paperwork, the last vestiges of the legal battle. "The criminal case against Liam is proceeding smoothly," Arthur said, stacking a pile of documents neatly, his voice a low rumble. "He's looking at a lengthy sentence. Bethany's career is over. They truly underestimated you, Clara. They saw a woman in grief and they saw weakness. They were profoundly mistaken." I nodded, a quiet, almost serene satisfaction settling deep within me. There was no joy in their downfall, only the grim satisfaction of justice served. They had tried to destroy me, to label me unhinged, to steal everything I had. But in doing so, they had inadvertently forged me into a stronger architect, a more resilient leader, a more astute businesswoman. "Elias would be immensely proud of you, Clara," Arthur said softly, looking at me with a profound respect that warmed me from the inside out. "He always said you had a vision few others possessed, and the tenacity to see it through. He always trusted your instincts implicitly." Tears pricked my eyes, but these were not tears of sadness or fear. They were tears of release, of vindication, of a quiet, profound triumph. I looked around Elias' office, his personal sketches still adorning the walls, his well-worn drafting table now gleaming with new projects, the faint scent of old books and fresh ink comforting me. He had prepared me, not just with architectural knowledge and mentorship, but with the quiet wisdom to discern character, the resilience to endure hardship, and the courage to fight for what was right. "I want to establish a new initiative, Arthur," I said, "a new idea taking root, a powerful vision for the future. The Elias Thorne Mentorship Program. It will provide comprehensive resources and ethical guidance for young architects, especially those from unconventional backgrounds, helping them navigate the complexities of this industry, and crucially, protecting their intellectual property and their professional integrity." Arthur smiled, a genuine warm smile. "A truly fitting legacy, Clara. You're not just rebuilding the firm. You're building a new foundation for future generations, a testament to integrity and resilience." The betrayal had been a crucible, a fire that had tested my resolve, my very soul. But my true victory wasn't just in their downfall. It was in my newfound clarity, in Elias' enduring trust, and in the quiet, unshakable knowledge that I had faced down calculated malice and won. Not by becoming ruthless and deceitful like them, but by being sharper, more prepared, and ultimately, by staying true to the integrity and the foundational principles Elias had always instilled in me. The storm had passed, the demolition complete, and I stood, not just firm, but ready to build anew, stronger and wiser than ever before.